أول شيء بدي أتشكر هاني راد مدير عام سيسكو في منطقة الليفانت والعراق. عندي العراق، لبنان، الأردن وفلسطين وسوريا as part of my region. So you can imagine التاسك اللي عندي. أول شيء بدي أتشكر القائمين على المنتدى وأعطانا الفرصة للمشاركة ولو بجزء أن نشارككم بواحدة من الأشياء اللي هي شغلتنا هالأيام، اللي هي الأكثر شيء والأتراكت ترند تبع النتورك من هلأ ل5 سنين، والرول of the Internet of Things والماشين تو ماشين وبعض الأشياء اللي حنحكيهم سوا. البرزنتيشن حتكون mainly بالإنجليش، بس إذا في حدا منه فهمين شيء معين أو بيحب أنه نفوت أعمق ببعض المواضيع فينا نعملهم بعد السيشن أو حتى بفترة إذا في شيء سريع أكيد فينا نعمله. التايتل تبع السيشن تبعيتي The Tale of Two Networks. هو الحقيقة ما في two networks، هي one network، بس اللي عم نطلع نحن بيس على الأسسمنت اللي عم نعملهم through a virtual network index studies اللي صرنا 10 سنين بنعملهم على النتورك، اللي هي بتدرس أكثر شو عم بيصير على الشبكة. يعني الترافيك والكونسومشن هي one indicator والجروث تبعه one indicator، بس الحقيقة بدي أفهم شو عم بيصير عليهم، لأنه هيدا بيساعد كتير لنحن نتماشى مع التطور ونخلي الشركات يلي هي اليوم عم تفكر بدها تطلع للمستقبل وتكون عارفة الاتجاهات. فعم نطلع we're looking at two main areas اللي عم سميهم two networks that are very divergent, but they are the ones who are driving the consumption على الانترنت. So we run, and this is publicly available, and you can look it up online and run your analysis very specific per country, per area, per بنرجع نشوف more details على الanalysis. It's called Virtual Network Index. This looks at the traffic on the fixed and the mobile network. Every year we look at the result and we compare it to the previous year of what we have predicted. And then we start doing the adjustment for the next 5 years. Yani, we looked at 2013, then we put the 2014, and we predict 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19. And this has becoming, the reason why it has become a major reference for government, for policymakers, حتى for global organizations, for NGOs, for anyone that's looking forward thinking, عم يطلع على this report, we're coming within 10% of what we're predicting, and this is very good. And we are one of the very few companies who look back, compare, and come back and move on the predictions. I'm going to share with you few things that are shaping the internet. وبنحكي على two networks as they come into play. We are expecting and predicting a 6 times increase of the IP traffic within the Middle East and Africa. This one looks at Middle East and Africa. So the Middle East, North Africa, which is the Arab world, is part of it, including the Gulf. And then it takes a part and it covers Africa. So the trends are about the same, plus or minus some indicators, but we are living pretty much in the same area. But بعض الأوقات we're driven down by sub-Saharan Africa. But at the end of the day, you will see as we move forward, we share the same concerns. So we're looking at growing at a compound growth rate 44% per year. This is a huge growth. So we're still at the beginning. So you can imagine 5 years down the line, and this is really an eye-opener as well to the various governments on also being prepared, or the Ministry of Telecoms or some of the network operators to start preparing themselves for such traffic. لأنه this is a huge explosion as عم نطلع فيه, and there are a lot of drivers فيها. Dr. Abdel Menem in his discussion this morning looked up at already a growth from last year and the previous years, but it will be interesting to see how we together foresee the growth in the country for the next 5 years as well, and see how much we are building networks and how much we are supporting that growth. لأنه always in my discussions and debates with government and private entity, it's not what you want to give, it's what the user wants. It's the user experience today and what they want. They're driving the need. They're shaping the networks. Our kids, you can imagine what tools they use versus what we use, and gives you a good indicator that we're already in diversion, and we assume we're نحن شوي technology aware and so on. So that evolution or growth is driven by four main elements. First of all, people. And unlike developed countries, in the Arab world, we still have a lot of unconnected people. If you look at the developed countries such as the UK as an example, they're going to grow 2 million within the 5 years in terms of connectivity, 54, 56 to 58 million. For us, we're doubling. This is a huge, we're adding more connections. Devices. And this is one of the diversions اللي هنشوفهم على network. You hear a lot of M2M and you hear a lot of Internet of Things, and a lot of reports came up, and CISCO were one of them who came out and said 99% of things are still not connected. Yani what we see in terms of connection today is about 1% of what we could connect, which means your plant is not connected, your hospital is not connected, your school is not connected, devices, your transportation, people, dogs, so there are a lot of, all the wearables, you can imagine all the various services. So there's going to be a huge explosion in that area, and that's one of the networks when I'm talking detail of the two networks. So it is basically the devices. The third one, a fast internet. Definitely we look at developed, or more developed countries than Lebanon in the region. So we could say Dubai probably are doing better than others, Qatar, Kuwait, and some of the countries. But on average, we're way behind. We're way behind. So we're looking, again, increasing speed. So this is one area which will let people use more services as well. And then the most important one that's really going to impact the bandwidth, and that's going to impact the internet, is the rich media. And we're talking about video here. We believe, and this is for years, and we have been on our prediction. Actually, previously we predicted before this year that's going to be 75% of the internet utilization is going to be video. This year we adjusted it to 78. So this is scary. And what do we mean by video? It's basically everything we've seen. We've seen live streaming on high definition. We've seen today, we see short video of YouTubes. We see streaming happening. We see video communication. We see all type of videos, even sports. You see all of our kids want to go in and watch the last goal and watch about this and that. So there's a lot of video ongoing. And definitely the utilization of higher definition video is going to also shape that bandwidth. So again, the IP video is going at 78% from the overall traffic. Okay? And again, growing at the 44% rate we discussed. We see similar one, by the way, in the mobile environment as well. Again, 60% of the mobile traffic is video. What's driving it as well is basically the video definition. So we look at growing in the high definition space, again, from 8% to 25%, and the Ultra HD as well. And I want to mention here a couple of points. And by the way, these are available in Lebanon. Why I'm saying this, I don't want to go into discussion about cheap, more expensive here, more expensive there. And because some people are able today to pay for it or not. But these services or such bandwidth, in a way or another, depending where you're living for sure, depending on the service providers, are available in Lebanon. So you can run high definition video. You can run multiple screen high definition video. You can have multiple high definition video in one organization running on your bandwidth. And we have also as well, there's a lot of current engagement on the level of public sector, on the level of education, on the level of private organizations who are using high definition video in order to collaborate, in order to educate, where you give all your training remotely, and as well in such sessions. Also, we're running pilots around remote health services, In Jordan, we have the CISCO Health Presence, where we've equipped 5 hospitals, as an example, to do remote health. استعملنا كمان this technology للاجئين الإخوان السوريين to be able to be connected remotely in areas where they cannot have the health service. I want to stop just 1 second around this area. And when I get people coming in looking for jobs, to me, I don't have the answer anymore nowadays. Previously, I could say, those are looking, these are, there's opening here, there's an area. Today, it's very tough. Today, there's no available jobs people are looking to fill. And always the direction is try to be innovative. When there is an engineer who has, and as Kwa mentioned, we've done a lot on network academies. When they become technically able, the issue doesn't stop there. Maybe you need to be entrepreneurial in your thinking. Maybe you need to basically add additional components in order to create your organization. Or look at the differentiative areas in order to actually build something that matters. Or some of the things we will discuss as well as we move forward. And those are some of the services when we talk about organizations doing health services, not the classical way, solving traffic issues, not the traditional way, and not necessarily looking at civil environmental engineering. I've read reports published by some of the universities over the last 10 years that talk about a problem, and it's still as is, and it's all about not using technology in solving it. So we need to start being innovative on connecting our city, walau in fragmented areas, and not necessarily waiting for a government to take a decision as well to do it. Maybe we'll find a way to facilitate, we'll work together with them. But this is actually what's going to, as we move forward, you'll see it in a lot of cities in the Arab world. But it's something that every one of us should start thinking, how can I use technology to solve this issue, to improve our lives, to create new jobs? And it's an ongoing question that needs to actually be always running in our mind. Also, we need networks to be ready, not only to provide us with connectivity, bandwidth, and so on, but to support us at peak hours as well. And busy hours usually, by the way, could be any time in the evening. It's not about, it used to be organizations during the day. This is when everybody wakes up at 9 o'clock. But this is when our kids are actually, what my daughter tells me, I'm reading my feeds. It's like, go to sleep, I'm reading my feeds. Like, شو هالفيدز? I'm like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and it's all about videos, it's all about Instagram. And it's amazing. There is a feed in the morning, there's a feed in the evening. So imagine all of them are going through all those feeds, and at the same time, my other kid wants to see the goal that I don't know who scored at what time, and it's all, heavy network utilization, and different way of thinking on the way we do it. Maybe we do part of it, but again, so we need those networks locally to be sustainable on that. And I think we do feel it sometimes where there's a higher contention ratio ببعض المحلات, speed drop and so on. But we want to make sure we have the right bandwidth to support us on it. And we see quite a big divergence between the peak and the normal. So if people look at average of where they want that network to be, the peak is higher. And this is what we wanted to make sure that when anything that's, and we are part of Lebanon's backbone, the infrastructure, private, public sector, and so on. And we always want to make sure that we tackle this as well. We don't want to just build it on an average as we see it. There are a lot of peak hours that we want to take into consideration. And again, what sort of traffic is going there? There is prioritization of traffic. There is a huge consumption in certain traffic that requires different quality than others. There is video, there is voice. All these actually are today running on IP networks. So we've talked, so the machine-to-machine one, if you look at the growth of M2Ms and smart devices in the world, in the Middle East, you start seeing a huge development or a huge growth in the smartphones. You look at TVs, and there is also penetration on connected TVs. This is what we're talking about. There is penetration on high definition TVs in our area, and all of these are getting connected today on the internet with services other than the gaming and so on. So if we go back on the M2M devices, these are machine-to-machine connectivity without the intervention of humans that are actually going to sit around us, sending different data and giving different actions based on what they get, be it a health service, be it probably mobility of people here, be it a security, and so on. If you're seeing, if you look at our share in 2009, we're quite behind on the global, and this has to do with the development of the infrastructure and the development of the country in providing those services. But this is a huge area that we can first look at, because there's a huge growth in that business. Bear in mind that these devices do not necessarily use the internet to go out, because they could be silent, sitting idle, waiting, connecting, looking at a probably with some traffic and some analysis over on the local network, and then moving out based on outside the internet based on the sort of services they're providing. So it could be, and we will talk about it, it could be across multiple verticals within the market. So we're way behind the global average, which is 43% of the connected devices. So we're only 17. This is what I just mentioned. Even though there's a huge explosion of M2M, the traffic utilization is low out of it. So it's not necessarily, it's shaping the network, but not necessarily contributing to the 75% that the video is taking out of the network. Okay. So again, connected homes, largest, connected health, fastest growing. We look at various segments. We're going to see a lot of, there's also definitely the energy growth, which we see also across the Gulf countries as an example. So these have to do with sensors as an example. They have to do with as well manufacturing. They have to do kill vertical, energy, smart metering as an example. There's a lot of different use cases whereby machine-to-machine are adopted in different countries. Here we talk again about connected cities. This is what we strive and what we work with governments on, driving initiatives for a connected city. So for example, when you go to Barcelona, it's a connected city. We're digitizing France currently. We're looking at Germany. Dubai and the Internet of Things World Forum last week came to be the leader actually in smart cities connectivity in the region. What this one means, and this also gives ideas for the generations, for the software developers, and for the ecosystem to bring things together to the country, has to do with everything. Has to do with health, as I said, physical security, where you could basically monitor your house remotely, but through a package, not through I don't know how to connect to the camera, to the Wi-Fi, I don't have the bandwidth. You want it as a service. And those are the sort of things we're looking at currently. I don't only need bandwidth, and there is about 60 ISPs today that are giving us bandwidth. Some of them are coming up with services, so they can give you video service, as an example, as a service. You pay for it by month. Per month. And then you have others who are coming up with health services where you would do wearables, they connect you to the doctor and so on. All of these are fast moving ones. And then we need to definitely go in. We have cameras on the street. We have different sensors that are collecting data. There are certain projects now running whereby there are sensors in the agriculture areas to know when to water them and what time to do what, and they send their feeds in. Connected cars is something that's also going to explode, whereby currently we don't see it so much in the Arab world, but all of the cars, be it connecting the car to understand the speed, the faults, your internet radio in the car, and the access that you could get while moving, your maps, all of these are going to actually create a huge demand in the market. So not only today, you're looking at the 3G, 4G networks, you're looking at public Wi-Fi networks, you're looking at the role of all the entities collectively, مع البلديات, providing that service. People might, and just part of this, that, okay, how we're going to move, is it moving fast, is it at the right pace, and so on. I'm always optimistic. So I came back to Lebanon, and I look at a region where I only can be optimistic, because this is something that we need to bring people around the table, work together on common grounds, and start giving them, let's say, even if it's as smaller steps, the value that they can get as they move forward, and simplify it. Definitely, we need the laws. Definitely, we need the support. We need the stable political environment. But as long as we're moving step by step, we're on the right track. And adding that we have seen, and Dr. Youssef showed some growth in connectivity. We have seen some growth as well in the technology business, or in our business in the region last year. So this is in line with this growth in Lebanon as well. So Lebanon, Urdun, Manatiq al-Khalij, and so on. So things are on the growth, and it's an area عطشانة. So and I believe the more you give it, the more they're gonna need. And it's not like this is enough. Let's see what we can do. Let the services drive that demand. And I think our younger generation and innovative people can really move faster than probably some of the others who probably their role or their understanding of things vary a little bit. But I don't believe today we've got a lot of incubators, we've got a lot of tech hubs and so on, and all of them are really creating a good, let's say, energy within the market that hopefully will drive some of that growth. So I've mentioned the different sectors we look at. So we look at connected home, work, utilities, car, and every one of them looks at so many things under it that are areas to further enhance our life, to further actually improve productivity, let Dawla probably reduce cost, and this is what some of that technology is about. So from the connected cities to the retail business, and you'll be surprised if for example, today you're going shopping and the amount of data they collect out of you just to know where you're walking, what stand you're stopping at, how long you stood there, and start to actually understand your behavior so they can actually put the right product at the right place. This is happening today, and in various places in Lebanon as well. So there's a lot of intelligence that's going, a lot of data that's being collected in order to basically give you a service that you request. Definitely, we see a lot of them growing at a very fast rate. So the two divergent area that driving demand, we mentioned the rising of video and the connected devices, the M2M. These are not only actually do require additional bandwidth or different networks, it's really creating complexity. Creating complexity to manage, creating complexity on the security level, creating a complexity on the scalability level. All of these are today, we're facing them as challenges. We're resolving them as we move forward. We're providing the right services on top to make sure we're moving forward with the demands. So just key takeaway, video really are going to be drivers of our network. And you will see it as you move forward into, you'll see it more often. You'll see it used in collaboration as we saw here. You'll see it with point to point. You'll see more smart devices around. Network complex, as we mentioned. And we need to actually manage complexity and congestion as well. So complex is, yes, it's very complex, but also I want to make sure that I have the right network to support scalability and the connectivity of the various of the demand that's coming from the user. So those are the emerging digital divides based on M2M IoT, and then basically we need to foster IoT and the management of complexity of this network, and really start to see how, and again, and measure and see how well we are moving with those deployments that are going to support connecting the various remote areas, bringing more people on board, get technology again to support us on providing the right services for the citizens, and at the same time, let the country benefit out of it, basically. So those are the things we look at based on what I've shared with you. The impact definitely is important in order to meet the Arab world social and economic goals. Again, in my engagement with different countries, we see it much more in numbers, and we see it somewhere where we're driving towards with clarity on the vision and the direction and how we're driving it with various ministries. In Lebanon, it is fragmented in different places, not necessarily on a country's vision, but you see a lot of silos taking place at various places and municipalities and ministries, and you'll hear a lot of it. There's a lot of good initiatives from multiple ministries. Hopefully you'll hear them announced at the beginning of the year, where we're either they're getting linked internally through video. You saw an announcement by the Minister of Education linking his location. Ojero is working as well on linking remotely the various some key branches as well to improve productivity مع الناس, and at the same time provide the quickness of giving the right education remotely without getting stuck بالسير or waste time during the day. So this is the end of my presentation. I hope as we move forward in the coming few years that we look back and start to see where things have developed. But this is a good indication, on maybe what are some of the things we see coming, and some of the things that you see an opportunity as well. And I see young generation, a lot of you around, or where you will be looking at as things evolve the markets around you. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for your presentation. It's quite interesting and beneficial. However, you spoke of the tale of two networks, and I would say this is taken from the tale of two cities, right? Do I have to go back to the content of the tale of two cities, or am I to understand that there is the internet IPv4 and there is the internet of IPv6? And we haven't come across that at all.
No.
So, if I may, just a second. And the approximate uses of the Internet of Things and M2M, which is basically the same of IoT or IoE. But still, I would say that the usage of the IPs by the ISPs is drastically bad, and I don't see any means of any improvement whatsoever in the Arab world about it, and particularly in Lebanon. I don't know what is your vision, being the regional manager general manager of CISCO. What do you think of what is being done for the migration from IPv4 to IPv6?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. We're talking here, and as I mentioned at the beginning, it's not a diversion of two networks, two separate networks. It's the same network. So I just mentioned trends within the network. So it doesn't necessarily relate to IPv4, IPv6 type issues and migrations that we hopefully will be seeing happening. Definitely. So as I mentioned, the challenges that we're going to be facing are connectivity and IPs, and as you mentioned, connecting devices, which is separate than providing a bandwidth to support us on the video as well. So these are two different ones. To tell you the truth, we are in discussions currently in Lebanon about IPv6, and it's mature, and hopefully we will see it happening now. And I know there is a shortage in some situations of available IPs. And when this explosion comes, unless IPv6 is ready, probably we are not able to support it as well as we move forward. But all what I can tell you is it's happening. Now, as I mentioned, it's the speed at which things need to happen is what we need to continuously push and hopefully work together with the various entities to make it happen. And it has been, and this is what we do every day, is pushing more and more and more and so on. But it happens everywhere, by the way. I was just giving an example. We were just been awarded the National Broadband Network in Jordan as an example. I've been working on this deal for 4 years. 4 years. But we never stopped a single day from pushing. And we work together, and it's publicly, and we've changed about 3 or 4 ministers. And there was no money. But we made it happen. And this is the important part, is that once we started doing something, it's fine. We'll wait for years if it's on the right track, and eventually we'll refresh and we'll move in and doing something. But we reach a conclusion that at the end of the day, Jordan will have a national broadband network to connect 10,000 entities in the public sector. This is a public sector network in the initial phases. And we're doing it over 2 years. So it's in no time. So I think what we need is to make sure there's a clarity on where we're heading, and especially on initiative. It's fine. In some situations, it's hard to come in with, like, for example, today we're engaged in digitization of France. Maybe we cannot do it on a France level or on a country level, but I keep telling them, let's do it on a mayor's level, for example. Let's drive communities, and then these will eventually get connected. It's hard in our countries, or in some of them at least. It's hard to drive a continuous direction, given the different challenges we're facing, regularly. But I'm optimistic, and in our field, yes, we suffer from probably the availability of speed. The cost is high, and so on. But I always believe there is good bandwidth. There is, in some situations, good quality of mobile. If you go in Europe today, look at the connections and look at the data service. So, and again, it's not across all Lebanon, and that's an issue as well. So I can't measure Beirut over the rest of the country. But we want to make sure that internet gets across to all Lebanon at a good, or in the Arab world everywhere, at a good speed to start actually, let them take part of that boom that's happening and innovation as we move forward.
Thank you. Jubran Khouri من Lebanon. Actually, when I heard your first presentation mentioning about the two networks, I thought I would witness something like the LP1 network, the low power wide area network, whereby you didn't mention in your presentation. When we talk now about IoT and M2M, so there are large companies like Semtech, like Sigfox, the LoRa. You didn't mention any of that. And definitely the IoT, in sometimes like video streaming and something, it needs, of course, bandwidth. But in most of the devices to be connected, it doesn't need bandwidth. To connect your plant to irrigation system, to connect your fridge to your waste bin, your whatever, they don't need your pets. So these are completely two different networks. There is the traditional networks, the PSTN, the mobile, and there is the LP1 network.
So, okay. So I'm not sure if you were here the whole time, because you just repeated what I said before, except the brands and the network. So that's exactly what I said before. And that's exactly when I talked about the two convergent network, and I mentioned some of them are local, and they talk about a huge explosive number, and some others do use the internet and the bandwidth and so on. So when we look at bandwidth utilization and the connected, we look at IPs and IP addresses and so on as captured. And when we look at the bandwidth and utilization of the bandwidth, we took into consideration, as I mentioned at the beginning, the mobile and the fixed as well. And they're in it, irrelevant on which access they will use and so on.
Just a bit of clarification. When we talk about the LP1 network, in the region where CISCO, you are the general manager of this region, in how many countries the network is deployed now? There is a low power wide area network deployed.
I don't have the answer, to tell you the truth. To give you that, I can double check and get back to you. But we don't, to us, when we look at it, when we look at connectivity, I don't have the indicators you're asking for.
And you, as CISCO, you are involved in providing equipment for such networks?
For the Wi-Fi, for the WANs, for the I-WANs, yes.
Not for the low power
Not for the low power one.
Okay, thank you.
وائل قداح وزارة الشؤون الاجتماعية. في عندي سؤالين بليز بدي أعذبك. أول شيء بالنسبة لل 17% تبعوا الميدل إيست اللي هن الام تو ام يوزج
percentage.
يس في شيء بلبنان في شيء تطبيق انعمل بلبنان ولا اتس ان ذا ميدل ايست بس نوت ان لبنان. هي اول شغله. والشغله الثانيه هلا بال 2016 في شيء بوليسي للسبورت للببليك سيكتور بوث على البوث ليفل يعني تكنيكلي او فاينانشلي وثانك يو فيري ماتش.
عم تحكي support من سيسكو؟
يس.
Okay. So الشق الأولاني again there are sensors and devices around that are currently available. Okay. And we don't, again, it's very, very, very low penetration. This is when we will start seeing matters is when we start seeing connectivity to a service. يعني اليوم the M2M could be a device sitting in a hospital sending symptoms of a patient. It could be a wearable in some place that's sending symptoms about heart rate, for example. It could be a physical security camera that's interacting to give a service. They're there, but on a very small scale. And you'll see about new servers being launched as well on a larger scale. Now, when we start seeing it exploding is when we see more of a digitization of a service or of a ministry or مثل ما حكينا traffic, Ministry of Transportation coming up with sensors on buses to do certain things, parking, as an example, having those sensors parking. Agriculture, I mentioned, there are some sensors on agriculture. You see the universities and researchers are very much interested in the IoT area and participate, especially in Lebanon. We had a very strong participation Dubai recently, in Barcelona. Our mayor home, and we have a smart city being built up in the north, actually, where we partnered with them, where they're using Internet of Things. So they'll have it in the apartments, they'll have it out on the streets, they'll have it for the waste management, they'll have it for their physical security, and it's real. So the scale of it is limited, to answer your question. Let me tell you our current engagement locally, other than the general, let's say, day-to-day engagement, whether it be events مثل هدول and so on. Our largest CSR activity in Lebanon is the CISCO Network Academies. And in the last few years, I put a lot of focus on them to double them. So we have about 40 academies in Lebanon. We have thousands of students getting through them. We're integrating them with the universities to make those people and to be ready with the CISCO certification at graduation time and not thinking about it later. And some of the universities are putting it part of their program. Also, that we introduced 3 courses that we also introduced in Lebanon that has to do with cybersecurity, entrepreneurship, and IoT. And those 3, I thought, very essential as well to bring to Beirut. This is a major CSR contribution from us, and it covers كل لبنان. And most of the universities, people are here, most of them today do have CISCO academies in them, and they make sure that their students take part in it. Other than this, currently, there's no current plans on doing anything else. Definitely, Balmadi, we have partnership for Lebanon, so there was a huge engagement from CISCO over many years, بال 2008 for many years, and we had over 100 people hired, sent to the US, being here put in the public sector. We've worked with Ministry of Education, with the TRA back then, and so on, and some micro funds, but currently there's nothing. No plans.
Yusuf Turman from Jordan. Thank you for bringing part of the story of the National Broadband Network of Jordan. In fact, yes, I agree with you that the last part of the story is the last 4 years back and forth because there is no money. But actually, the story of National Broadband Network started in 2003. And at that time, they implemented the first part, which includes more than 3,000 institutions, schools, universities, and some public organizations. So the part
we implemented the first phase in 2006,
and you did that actually. So there is something. Not only the last 4 years, but there is something is already implemented. Thank you. Just a note. Thank you.
So that last phase only took that long, but the story started a long time ago.
And it's in place. I was managing the Jordanian University Network with 10 universities, with 28 campuses connected to the national broadband network.
I mean,
That's
some
an
of the
example.
initiatives, because this is something that we need to make sure also, probably with the help of Ministry of Telecom and some of the other universities, there are initiatives in Jordan that we had similar ones, but they were not as active, and we couldn't really take advantage of them. We are part of the Jordan Education Initiative, so this is ongoing for schools. So we need to make sure we come together as schools here with some initiative and take advantage probably of what we could bring to those schools in order to make it a better place. And there's also the Jordan Health Initiative. And these are major initiatives. These have Jalalat al-Malik flying all over the world collecting money and asking people to contribute. And if you ask, you get a positive answer. And when we got the partnership for Lebanon, it was a meeting that I arranged back at Davos. Actually, back then, مع رئيس الوزراء بوقتها كان السنيورة to bring funds to Lebanon based on what we need in order to rebuild the country. So recently, we need probably some stability in order to do it, but it's happening almost in every country. When there is more clarity and there is an objective that we need to attain collectively, we really can do it. And we've done it here in the past. It's not like, and we're doing it as, Jordan. I'm very much active in Jordan. So I see them, how they're working. I see the limited means they have. It's not they have money, they can do it. No. And probably الأخ بيعرف شو عملنا لنجيب مصاري. Very simple. So it's not like money on the shelf or people or the country generate money. It was persistence, long-term engagement with donors, with different funds, من محل لمحل, to make it happen, and to some point local contribution and persistence from the ministry itself. Any other questions? Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
تحت شعار اقتصاد الإنترنت من أجل التنمية المستدامة، تستضيف هيئة أوجيرو للاتصالات برعاية وزير الاتصالات اللبنانية الأستاذ بطرس حرب، وبالتعاون مع الإسكوا وجامعة الدول العربية الاجتماع الرابع للمنتدى العربي لحوكمة الإنترنت في 16 17 و18 كانون الأول ديسمبر 2015 فندق موفنبيك بيروت. للحضور أو المشاركة عن بعد www.igfarab2015.org.